A much anticipated fight in Eddie Hall versus Thor Bjornsson. Two strong men that decided they're going to take up their beef in boxing has just concluded, and what a fight that was. It went the distance in 6 rounds, and it was not even a bad fight. A lot of people are criticizing these guys for that fight, but I think that performance was great. I mean, both of these guys showed they could go 6 rounds in boxing. That's not easy, and we're going to be breaking down round by round what happened. And immediately as this fight starts, you see the complete difference in these guys' stances as well as just their fighting style, as Thor has kind of more of a traditional boxing style, while Eddie has a complete, just wild, crazy style. But he was landing repeatedly. He came out fast and explosive, landing right hand upon right hand. Whenever Thor was throwing a punch, he would counter with his own right hand and set Thor off balance. It was a very fast start, and it looked like he was having a lot of success in that first round, doing a lot of damage to Thor very early. Both these guys came out in southpaw, and you could definitely see that they put in a lot of work in just boxing to be able to perform at the pace that they were continuously showing throughout the fight. Eddie was actually coming in with some pretty good body work, as he was slipping his head off the center line and coming in with a jab to the body, which definitely got Thor thinking. You could definitely tell at any time either of these guys could really do damage to the other. In this first round, we see Thor coming in with a lot of straight shots, while Eddie's coming in with more looping shots, kind of hooks, kind of overhand rights, and he's having success there. But Thor's coming in with a lot of straight shots, like 1-2 down the pipe. And, I mean, he's having success, but Eddie does a good job of getting his head off the center line and being able to slip a lot of shots. He was able to cut Eddie pretty early, which I think it kind of bothered him as the round started to progress. And, I mean, just to have that so early and him probably not being used to that, you could just tell Thor was actually trying to put his shots together, while Eddie was kind of more just going off of instincts and trying to really land whatever he could find.
And moving on to the second round, it was a crazy round, as literally a second in to the round, Eddie catches Thor with a big jab and pretty much would have knocked him down if it wasn't for the ropes holding him up. And just a crazy way to start the second round. You can see Eddie just really had quite the awkward stance compared to Thor, just trying to be more technical and just lining up some good jabs. With Eddie getting such a early knockdown, it looked like he was really confident. Was kind of seemed like he was taunting Thor and just seemed very confident early on. Something a little surprising that I didn't expect too much was Eddie actually switching stance quite often, especially after he would throw. He would pretty much just switch stance a couple times. Also, Thor seemed to be quite effective with his jab, as it kept Eddie at bay and pretty much led up to good 1-2s straight down the pipe, which managed to land often for Thor. And pretty much second round just continuing with Eddie. Pretty wild looping shots coming in, trying to catch Thor. It seemed like Eddie kind of developed a different way of defense, as he was kind of using his shoulder and his elbow to kind of defend himself against punches from Thor. And towards the end of the round, it seemed like Eddie got a knockdown on Thor, but the ref ruled as a slip, which I don't know. It kind of seemed like Eddie got him clean there, but it was ruled a slip.
Yeah, you can really see that Eddie was really trying to implement that deflection with his shoulder and try to avoid shots. And hey, it was working. He was staying away from jabs, and he was also tilting his head really weirdly and moving his body weird. But he had good upper body movement and just head movement in general, where he was able to slip a lot of Thor's punches. And about halfway through the round, Thor was able to land a flush 1-2 right on Eddie's jaw, which really set him off and kind of gave Thor that confidence to eventually knock Eddie down. And right at the end of the round, Thor catches Eddie with a huge left hand, and it sets Eddie down. And it really brought the pace back for Thor, who was probably losing the fight at this point, and was definitely able to turn it around starting at that point.
Starting off the round, Thor becomes more aggressive since he had Eddie hurt in the very last seconds of the last round. And you could see him kind of being more aggressive than he was previously, but then kind of stops the tempo and goes back to being more technical. But Eddie's showing that he actually has good upper body movement and good head movement. I was quite surprised, actually. And for such a big guy, he actually showed some decent evasiveness. And I was actually quite impressed with the cardio of both men, especially for how big they are. I was kind of expecting them to gas out quite early, but they actually showed to have a decent amount of cardio going left into the later rounds. Thor just continuing to land big 1-2s. And at that moment, it kind of seemed like Eddie went for like going off the ropes and trying to land a big shot, and then continues to avoid some shots, which is still just showing his pretty decent head movement.
In that fifth round, the fight was really heading into Thor's favor as he continued to pretty much just cruise through these rounds. And Eddie was in a pretty weird stance, as he had all his weight on his right leg, while his whole upper body was leaned towards his right side. It kind of confused Thor and kind of put him off. Eddie was clearly looking for counters, as he was really slipping shots, but he wasn't able to really find as many openings as he would like. The only times he would really counter is when he was trying to time Thor, when Thor was throwing his right hand and leaving himself exposed for a little bit. Eddie would try to catch him, and he had pretty good reflexes and good timing, especially for a big guy who's over 300 pounds. It's definitely impressive.
And in the very last round, you can see Thor just pretty much cruising to a victory, but also gets a massive knockdown, which, to be fair to Eddie, still manages to get up after everything that's happened and all the prior knockdowns. Thor just showed that he uses technique and more of his textbook fighting to get the win, and his 1-2s seem to be very effective throughout the fight. Yeah, and something I was a bit surprised about, that after the knockdown, Thor didn't really try to engage Eddie too much and was kind of just being on the back foot, trying to get through the round and finish it as he felt he was up. It was the last round and he didn't want to lose after being up in the cards.
Yeah, and in the end, Thor got the unanimous decision win, which, I mean, he did well. He actually, but they both surprised me. They both came in much fitter and better than I expected, especially for these two strongmen coming into boxing. It was definitely impressive, especially their cardio. It was a pretty good fight. It was exciting, a lot of knockdowns throughout the fight. So it was a good fight and a pretty impressive showing.